Hey, it's Drybear. Today I'd like to talk about raising your combat score in Tower of Fantasy and some lessons that I've learned in trying to spread out and play everything that have limited my progression and might help you in your progression as well. We'll talk about all the ways to raise your combat score, some tips and tricks, and some easy ways to get large jumps that benefit you in the short term. So let's go. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. The first thing to talk about with your combat score is going to be your weapons. Obviously, getting good weapons, SSR weapons if you can, and then getting those to high C levels. So when you go to upgrade and advancement, advancing these higher and higher will give you more combat score from that weapon. So it's super valuable to be able to do it. You can see that even just doing these little things can give you a big increase. And then obviously the next thing from that on your wet is going to be your weapon level. I actually am the kind of person, I'm a big altaholic. I love playing everything. So I love unlocking all the weapons, testing them all. You can see that I have, some C levels on a lot of these. I've leveled some of these up. I've mixed and matched them, partly because I just like experiencing all the gameplay, but also because I like writing guides for everything, tier list, stuff like that. But I would say that the one thing I do regret is not just picking a solid weapon set that I could use and putting everything I have into it, because you start to get pretty limited in your combat score being raised up if you're spreading yourself too thin on resources. Now, if you get to the point where you are ready to augment your weapons up higher, but you don't have the resources, here are a couple tips to get those weapons up higher. For most weapons, you're gonna need some level of an elemental core, plus these augmenting cores. Depending on the kind of weapon and the rarity of it, you may need more or less of a specific type. The best thing you can do is make sure that you're doing your weeklies, collect all your weekly activities, make sure you're doing your daily bounties, as sometimes it can help you out. And then your ruins will give you bonuses as well. The big thing I see people doing is they're trying to run joint operations exclusively for their vitality spend. What I've started doing, especially when I'm waiting for level 50, it just got unlocked today. We'll be able to get to level 50 and unlock legendary gear. But since I'm all purple right now, I don't really have a major reason other than the chance of getting the legendary matrices to get these gears. What I've been doing is running the dimensional trials. You can run these for either weapons or matrices to get the materials that you need to upgrade your matrices and your weapons. So you can do these, unlock them, and get a whole bunch of value. You can just match make them and they go super fast. But if you're stuck with weapons that you need to level up and you haven't leveled them up enough, I recommend doing the dimensional trials instead of the joint ops, just to get your weapons maxed out, as it does provide a pretty large combat score increase. The next thing is going to be your matrices, and just like the weapons, one thing I do regret is I tested out a whole bunch of purple combinations, blue combinations. I was trying to see what passives would affect the weapons if I could make builds. But again, one thing I wish I did was spend more time trying to get a solid set of 4 matrices for each of my main weapons to increase that combat score. And I think most of the people that aren't just whaling right now that are high CS did exactly that. They just focused on going to their weapons and getting the matrices as high as they can. And even awakening makes a big difference. So for example, this is a C0 SSR matrix for the Huma matrix. You can see that it provides 485 CS. It's level 45. When I go to an SR matrix, it's nearly half the value. So these are essentially, despite rarity, equal matrices. The only difference is their quality rating. This one's SR, this one's SSR. So you can see that you get a large sum of combat score from that. And then even just awakening, you can see another large jump, 485 to 646, because this is a C1 SSR matrix. So again, it's really good to focus on getting one build up. Even if it's not your final build, the biggest reason you want to do this is so that you can upgrade your suppressor. To get to your suppressor, you press escape and go to suppressors in the bottom right. And this thing gives you CS, it gives you base stats. You can see leveling up increases your attack, your resistance, HP, and crit sometimes. It's super valuable. It does give you loot as well. As you get to later suppressors, you'll be able to get SSR actually does give you, I think, 3 Shiros. at the very end. So there's another one, and there's another one. It also allows you to go into new areas. I think 4.1 allows you to go into Warren, the frozen area. And then I think at 4.5 or 5.1, you can go into the center area, the center city, and those unlock more exploration, which gives you more nucleuses that you can spend on pulling more characters and getting higher sea levels. So your suppressors are super important, but you can see that it has CS requirements before you can unlock them. So it's super important to just pump up your CS as high as you can. One, so you can increase your output, especially in group operations like join ops, or especially things like Frontier Clash, where the better that you do, the more loot that you get. Void rifts, climbing wormhole, getting up your bygone phantasm. The CS is really valuable for that. So don't be, even though I think I still will be doing, you know, my altaholic strategy, I think it's super useful to just have one build that you push up just for CS. And then as you unlock more over time and new banners come out, you start getting the build that you want. But don't gimp yourself too hard by not raising CS on all of these across the board. The next thing to talk about is your gear. And there's a few things to know here that are super important. Firstly, gear, as I'm sure you already know, comes in the different rarities. You have the blue, the purple, and then legendary. The difference in these is absolutely catastrophic. You can see how much the difference. So if I look at like one of these, base purple, 446, base blue, if we compare this, 193. So just the base value of it, you're talking about, you know, 2xing the value just at base by going up a rarity. So going up a rarity is super useful. And it gives you a big bonus. The next thing is going to be your set effect here. So you want to raise your gear up equally because you get this bonus, this effect here, this 8-piece bonus. Every 5 levels you get on average. So when you average your gear across the board, every 5 levels that average goes up. You get a big bonus in attack, resistance, HP, crit. So when all your gear is +5, you get the first one. When all your gear is +10, you get the second one. When all your gear is +15, so on and so forth. So it's good to get higher rarity and then make sure you're raising all your gear up equally so you can get these bonuses, as it gives you a big chunk. And the next tip is probably a little bit strange. It's something that I would recommend doing right now, and let me know if you do something differently in your gameplay. But I have stopped awakening my gear doing the advancement here with the stars, and mainly because so you can enhance and then you can go to advancement and you can use old equipment to advance your gear, which increases the stats. The reason I stopped doing it is because when you transfer your gear, so when you get a new rarity and you get that rarity and you equip it, and then you transfer the old gear onto the new gear, it will take the gear's current level, like this +15, and apply it to the new gear, but it will lose all stars. So the stars don't transfer. So I'd recommend, see, I'm kind of storing up gear here. The reason being is that I'm gonna wait until I get full legendary and then start advancing that gear, so that when we have, you know, when I actually know that I can have that gear for a good amount of time, the stars are gonna be more valuable. So I would recommend, even though it does give you a little bit of CS, you lose it when you upgrade it. So it might be worth just holding on to these until you get higher legendary gear at level 50 to lock those all in. But each of these upgrades gives you a nice bonus in CS. And if you get every 5, especially here, another bonus in CS. So if you're wondering how to get your CS up, get your weapons, get your matrices, get those advancements, get the C1s. And if you have to, you can make a set of weapons here that are just for gear score. So you can equip your highest advanced weapons with your best matrices, with your best gear on top of all that. And then put that all together so you can unlock higher levels of your suppressor, which will also allow you to unlock you know, better join ops, which gives you better loot and things like that. Helps you clear things faster as well. It is a gacha game, so you're going to have situations where your build is resistant. The enemy is resistant to your build, so you have to get different ones. But I see a lot of people kind of doing the thing that I was doing, which was trying to play everything at once, and then you're hard capped by your CS, which means you can't do things, you can't unlock your suppressor, you can't go further, you can't do exploration. So wanted to make this video. People were asking for it on how to raise your CS, and these are my tips and tricks. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.